highlights that we discussed earlier today. Overall, I'd like to commend both Central Hudson and New York State Electric and Gas for their response to the recent incidents that we've had here in our county. During Sandy, Central Hudson implemented a previously agreed upon staffing plan to assist in the processing of electrical outages at our 911 center. Central Hudson has conducted exercises in our facility over the course of the year. They ensure internet connectivity, cellular coverage, and so on. They've met staff, and that has reaped great benefits as we move into these disasters. I can't overemphasize the importance of developing those relationships. And over the course of the years, we have developed extensive long-term relationships with both of these utilities. Central Hudson staffed the desk for Ulster County for as long as the county required and asked them to provide that service. And they were instrumental in helping prioritize calls that were received through our 911 center. Priority calls such as wires on vehicles, critical infrastructure issues. The Central Hudson presence was key there. The communication between the utility and Ulster County Emergency Management Office was excellent. We participated in daily conference calls that included both elected officials and my peers from throughout the state, and I know my counterpart from Orange County is here this evening. We participated in those calls. There would be some value to separating the municipal officials from the OEMs. However, I don't want to risk pulling the utility executives away from the primary task at hand, which is restoring service to their customers in order to make another set of calls. So while there is value in it, I would rather them concentrate their efforts on power restoration. The implementation of the online outage map that both NYSEG and Central Hudson have is a phenomenal resource that up until a couple of years ago was not available. As I demonstrated today, the mobile app that Central Hudson has, all of the information regarding utility outages in your area, restoration timeframes, are all immediately available to the consumer at their fingertips. I find this extremely advantageous as an emergency manager, and I think the elected officials and every customer that is wondering where their power is could benefit from that service. Utilities, highway departments, fire service all work very well together. They did it in a coordinated manner. I think if additional resources are brought in and become available, we could fine-tune that somewhat just to identify what wires are live, which ones are dead, thereby improving our response and opening roadways that much quicker. While it's a tariff requirement for Central Hudson, NYSEG, and all utilities, I would strongly recommend that the Commission take a look at removing the requirement for the utility to provide dry ice and bottled water to their customers. Our 911 center, my office, we spend many hours fielding calls because of the anxiety, the questions, the logistical issues involved with dry ice and bottled water distribution. I think that those services can be provided by another agency and allow the utilities to focus on their primary task, which is power restoration. During our conversation today, we discussed a concept of a pool of utility resources. And I think that's a wonderful idea that certainly deserves exploration. As the coastal storm comes up the coast, all of the counties in New York and New York State as a whole are in line behind the other states that have already been affected by one of these coastal storms. And the same resources that we hope to receive, mutual aid resources from surrounding utilities, are all in great demand. And I think if we weren't in such a competition, if an organized accounting of the available resources in a systematic way to provide those resources and allocate them to the most needy areas was implemented, I think that would be a tremendous benefit. I realize that this has to be done in a way that minimizes the risk for the utilities, but also maximizes what we have to resources that we have available to improve our restoration. benefits of aggressive tree trimming cannot be overemphasized. We learned those lessons both during Hurricane Dennis and especially Hurricane Floyd. And as the utilities they reap tremendous benefits from that aggressive tree trimming approach, and I give the PSC credit for allowing that to continue and move forward. I think the communications that have been put forth by the utilities and local emergency management offices have been coordinated to a great extent so that we do provide the public with a consistent message. And I credit both the utilities in this area for ensuring that we do provide all of our customers with that consistent message. In conclusion, I believe that Central Hudson did a very commendable job in our storm Sandy. After working closely with the utility for a number of years, I'm comfortable Central Hudson has the appropriate plans in place, implements those plans at the appropriate times, and it does the best job humanly possible to restore service in a timely fashion. I emphasize that because any one of us that's without electric service wants our power back immediately. These are ordinary men and women doing extraordinary tasks in very terrible conditions, and I commend them for what they have done and what they do in a very short period of time. In summation, I believe that Central Hudson does a fine job in meeting the expectations of the people of Ulster County. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If you could just hold for a moment, please, if there are questions. Yes.
Thank you very much for your testimony. I was interested to hear your description of the calls that took place post-storm or during the storm with your group, the utilities, and the municipalities. We've typically at the hearings, we've been hearing a lot of negative reaction, especially from municipal leaders. Those calls don't contain a lot of substance, and I was surprised to hear you say you found them useful. Can you expand on that?
Certainly. I think, first off, both of the utilities that serve Ulster County conduct their calls in a time frame that allows both the elected officials and the emergency managers to participate in both calls, so they don't overlap. And when that problem arises, they're quick to resolve that issue. With regard to the quality and content of the calls, I think both utilities try to give a recap in the early stages of the call. They provide the information that's available, restoration estimates, mutual aid companies that are coming into the system, the dry ice and the bottled water information. They provide that on the front end. At that point, whether it be local municipal officials or emergency managers are allowed to ask questions. And the utilities in both cases are very patient, go through all of the questions, and in all candor and honesty, most of which can be answered by looking at the online restoration information. And for those that are unfortunately in a position where they don't have electric cable service where they are, the mobile app that is so handy that Central Hudson provides allows the elected officials to see the areas of the community that are without power, what the estimates are for restoration. So I think while the calls may sometimes be rather lengthy, it's drilling down into detail that could probably be best handled offline from the rest of the group.
Thank you. And with regard to the online outage map, you may not be the right person to be asking this question to. I'm just interested in hearing more about how it works and how they generate the information that goes into the online map, because when we were studying LIPA, for example, we don't have anything like that. And in fact, they were sending people out to the substations who would then run back to headquarters and pencil in a map from their best guess from the substation, what was on, what was off. And there was really no clarity for homeowners. So I wondered if you knew anything about it, because this sounds like a nice model.
It is a best practice, and I would encourage the other utilities to follow it. I certainly can't speak for how all of the information is developed. I know that there is a certain degree of field work that has to be conducted to find out what the outages are. However, I know that as the call centers receive these calls, they're put into a database and they're mapped both on a regular basis for a routine storm and for a large event. As a user, we decisions with respect to where do I need to establish shelters and other services for those people.
Thank you. Actually, your testimony is refreshing. Thank you. My fellow engineers have been taking it on the chin a little further south of here. It's interesting because your description is somewhat in contrast to what we've heard from the organisation, as I said, further south. Just a couple of questions. The extent to which you practice with the utilities as a municipality and get everybody to work together, do you practice emergency response?
We have routine communication with them. The drills that are conducted, in the case of Central Hudson, we have more drills involving their dam preparedness and the high hazard dams that they are in charge of. We do that on an annual basis with them. However, they do on a routine basis send their personnel to our office to get the lay of the land, to know what is available for them when they're assigned to our office. And just that open face-to-face dialogue is very important. We're much smaller than many of the municipalities that you've already heard from. So the people that we meet, we do know we're going to recognize those faces.
One of the other rub points were other crews coming in from other areas. Did you have, and they would not be familiar with the standards of the grid system, and so they would have to be trained in essence before they could be put to good use. Did you see problems with other crews coming in from other utilities?
The feedback that I received from the emergency service people in the field was that the people that came in were well trained. Is there a learning curve with the geography? Certainly. Our county is the size of the state of Rhode Island, so for them to get from one area of our county to another is a bit of a task. However, they did a commendable job. Very favorable.
Just a couple of others. Other issues that we've heard were problems were that before homes could be repowered, they had to be re-inspected and authorised, and there were not inspectors. Literally, there were not enough electrical inspectors to go back in and say, yes, it's safe to turn the power on. Do you have that kind of requirement in your municipality?
Depends what type of damage was sustained by the structure. If it's a simple power outage, it isn't, and an entire community is being re-energized, that's a much simpler task. When the utility is asked to cut power to homes that have been flooded, then yes, an inspection is required by a member of the Board of Underwriters to come in and actually work with the local building inspector.
And you have access to those people so that it can slow the process down?
Supply and demand again kicks in. However, through the State Emergency Management Office, we're able to call in additional resources from outside of our area, and we're able to share them, in the case of Sandy, with municipalities that may need some assistance.
And then finally, there was often problems that were cited because people their energy would be restored, and then out of the blue, in essence, they would have to be shut down to bring other areas back on. And those shutdowns were unannounced and often for extended periods, and you can imagine the frustration. So have you seen any examples of that?
As I stated, I think we're all frustrated when we lose our electric. However, all of us, I think, have an obligation to try to educate the public that the utilities always tackle these problems in a very methodical manner. They bring their substations back online, their transmission lines, then their primaries, and finally the service to individual homes. And it may seem disconcerting to a member of the public to see a utility truck drive by and not handle the problem right there in their neighborhood. But over the years, and I've been in this position for over three decades, over 30 years, I have seen that very methodical, pragmatic way of reconnecting power does get the most bang for the buck. They bring on the greatest number of customers by being able to take care of the generation component first, and then bring it on right down to the local level. So that's an obligation that I think we all have to get that message out. That it may not be what we would like to see. However, it is a proven method of getting most people back on as quickly as possible.
Thank you very much.
Snyder, thank you so much. We enjoyed meeting the Moreland staff, enjoyed meeting with you this morning. It was a very thorough interview. And part of what we need to do is examine the core mission of the PSC, as we had mentioned earlier, that we realized that the PSC has drifted from their core mission as far as being a regulatory entity. And you brought up a small but relevant piece to us today, and you mentioned this evening that we'll look at, and we'll probably look at it on more global issues, that utilities have tariffs that they basically have responsibilities that they're charged with, and the utilities are charged with providing dry ice and bottled water to those in need during outages, and that takes a lot of energy away from the utilities from providing the services that they need to do, because they need to publicize where these events are, and they need to get the material there and make sure that it actually goes smoothly and all the residents get it. So if there's possibly another entity out there that should be doing that, so the utility could focus on the core mission of re-energizing those who need re-energization is key. But that also opens up another door for us to start looking at what are the other things that the utilities are charged with that remove them from their core mission when they should really be focusing on re-energizing at that point. So we thank you for raising that with us and for also sharing with us Central Hudson's app, which I just happened to share with the DA and the chairman right now, where customers can actually download the app and go on and find out when they're going to get an ETR and the amount of outages as well, which is another helpful thing. It's small, but it's something that we would certainly encourage other utilities to do as well. So we learned from meeting you today and also your testimony this evening. Thank you so much for your time. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ron Hick, followed by Philip Jameson, then followed by Assemblymember Stephen Katz. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners, Executive Director. My name is Ron Hicks. I'm Deputy Commissioner of Strategic Planning and Economic Development for Dutchess County. And I'm actually here just to read a prepared statement. I'm actually not prepared to answer any questions. I'll try if you have any, but I was sent here by my executive and Office of Management Services, so I'm able to be with you here today. Dutchess County and Ulster County are very similar. We're both served by Central Hudson in the same manner, so I'm actually going to remove a couple of paragraphs that basically have already been mentioned here in the interest of time. Central Hudson Gas and Electric Corporation, which is headquartered in Dutchess County, has the majority of its customer base in Dutchess County. And since its inception, Central Hudson has had a strong commitment to the community and services model of corporate citizenship. Central Hudson's commitment is evident in the excellent relationship with Dutchess County government, where both work closely together in the public interest, which includes storm preparedness and response. Hurricane Sandy was the fourth major storm to impact the region in 3 years. And after each event, Dutchess County government and Central Hudson performed self-assessments as a best practice measure. In 2010, senior management from Dutchess County and Central Hudson met to review the response to the February snowstorms that created widespread power outages and to identify ways to strengthen communication, collaboration, and response during future emergencies. In fact, it was a number of efficiencies that were identified from a 2008 storm that led to much better service in 2010. The communication, collaboration, and response continues to improve after each event, and Central Hudson staff occupy space in Dutchess County's Emergency Operations Center during these events. Days before Hurricane Sandy became a concern to the general public, Central Hudson staff at the highest level briefed county staff on their preparations. In fact, Central Hudson Chairman, President, and CEO Steve Land spoke to me personally to ensure that the county executive was comfortable with the level of contact that he received from his staff. We remained very pleased with Central Hudson's response to Hurricane Sandy and strongly believe that Central Hudson's commitment to the community, their year-round efforts to minimize outages, including programs like tree trimming and storm preparedness, resulted in minimal impact on the public. Regardless of the size of the storm or the number of outages, preparation and communication proved to be keys to their success. Separate apart from our comments on Central Hudson, response to Hurricane Sandy, we wish to thank Governor Cuomo, and I know it's not part of this, but the MTA and Metro North, which is very important to this region up here, for maintaining constant communication during the storm. Hurricane Sandy was the first storm where any governor had actually assigned a cabinet member, in this case Joe Martins, to this region to coordinate response, and even one of his staff persons, governor's staff persons, Amy Vargas, made regular calls to the county executives to update them on the storm and to ask if if we needed any assistance. That often came in text messages, sometimes direct calls or emails. And they were willing to coordinate that assistance on behalf of the state or the federal government. So we want to thank them and thank you for the opportunity to give this feedback.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hick. Do we have any questions? And thank you for also commending Amy Vargas, who's an integral part of our team as well. So we do appreciate all the assistance that she provided you because we now get to benefit from that. Next up, we have Philip Jameson, followed by Assemblymember Katz, and then Michael Smith.